So Hume isn't exactly an atheist. He's not exactly a naturalist either. Although, as I said before, he's very anti-religion. He's anti-Christianity and Judaism. And if he knew about Islam, he'd be against that as well. Some people have described Hume's view as kind of an insipid, tepid deism, in assuming that there's some sort of intelligent cause or causes of the world. Um, then it's kind of like monotheism, but he doesn't believe in miracles, and he doesn't believe that this creator ever gets involved with creation later on. Um, Hume, though, is interesting in many ways as a philosopher, many more ways than we can get into here. And he's also one of the greatest writers in the history of the English language, if you ask me. And he paints a very dark picture of the world. And there's kind of an emotional gut reaction that's behind a lot of arguments from evil. Uh, and this is one of my favorite quotes from his book. One of his characters says, "The whole earth is cursed and polluted. A perpetual war goes on among all living creatures. Need, hunger, and deprivation stimulate the strong and courageous. Fear, anxiety, and terror agitate the weak and infirm. The first entrance into life brings distress to the newborn infant and to its wretched mother. Weakness, impotence, and distress accompany each stage of that life, and eventually it reaches its end in agony and horror." So that's that's a dark view of the world, and I'm not entirely sure it's a balanced view of the world either. But it's the kind of world where you'd be surprised if it came from a perfect being, and that's his point. So he doesn't really have an argument for atheism there, but he has the materials for an argument for atheism. And one of Hume's many fans among later philosophers was J.L. Mackie, who lived from 1917 to 1983. And he was an accomplished philosopher. And his two most famous books, I would say, are his book, The Miracle of Theism, from 1982. And he means that basically that it's a miracle that anybody believes monotheism. It's this kind of sarcastic title. And there's a lot of arguments inspired by Hume in that book. Another famous book of his is called Ethics, Inventing Right and Wrong. And he does not believe in right and wrong. He holds famously to what's called error theory, that all of ethics is just a big mistake. It's like astrology. It's a subject with no subject matter. But the argument that we're going to look at now is an argument from the mere existence of evil, any amount, any kind of evil, to atheism. He claims that when monotheists say they believe in God and they also believe in evil, that's actually inconsistent. And so he gives a very rigorous and interesting argument to this effect, and it's from a 1955 article of his, and it's been much discussed by later philosophers. And in a while, we'll look at how some monotheistic philosophers have responded to it. So here's Mackie's argument for atheism. Premise 1 says, if a being is perfectly good, he prevents evil as much as he is able. You might say, isn't that just obviously true? Second, if a being is omnipotent and omniscient, he can bring about anything which is possible. So if you're unlimited in power, that's omnipotent. And if you're unlimited in knowledge, that's omniscient. Then you'd be able to do anything which could be done, anything which was possible, that is, anything which was not contradictory. Well, that could seem obviously true. Maybe God, if there was a God, maybe God couldn't make a square circle, but maybe he could make a 500-pound pancake, or an orange that's 10 feet diameter, or pigs that fly. So, preliminary conclusion. Therefore, if a perfectly good, omnipotent, and omniscient being exists, he prevents evil completely. That follows from 1 and 2. He'd prevent evil as much as he's able, according to the first premise, and he'd be able to prevent it all, because it does seem possible that there isn't any evil. So if there were a perfect being, he would prevent evil completely. Add in an extra premise here. If God exists, then he is perfectly good, omnipotent, and omniscient. Look, that's just true by definition. That's what the religions of Judaism and Christianity and monotheism, that's just what they mean by the word God. Step 5 in the argument, this follows from 3 and 4. Therefore, if God exists, then he prevents evil completely. I bet you can see where this is going. Add in one more premise, that there is evil, and it follows from 5 and 6 that God does not exist. So the question you have to answer is, do you think this argument is sound or not? If you think it's sound, then you're committed to atheism. If you believe in God, you're going to have to find out some way to respond to this argument. And it doesn't seem like it's any good to just deny the conclusion here. You might think that if you're a theist, or if you're an agnostic, you might think that you're still committed to each one of the premises. So if you're really committed to this, and also to this and this, and we really do have a valid argument, then to be consistent, you have to accept the conclusion. So the question is, where are you going to get off the bus, if you are going to get off the bus? It looks like it's going to have to be at one or more of those 4 places. Now, a lot of people, when they encounter this argument, try to take an easy way out. But before I get to that, let's just point out that according to this argument, monotheism is crazy. Why? Because it's inconsistent with itself. Someone like a Jew or a Christian affirms the following 2 things: that God exists and that evil is real. And if Mackie's argument is sound, then these are inconsistent. It's just they're as inconsistent as asserting some proposition P and then also asserting the opposite, not P. So you're being inconsistent if you both affirm and deny something, and according to this argument, you're asserting something inconsistent, that God exists and that evil is real. According to that argument, those can't both be true. So theism is really crazy. I mean, it doesn't even have to be taken seriously once this argument is comprehended. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. Okay, so what are the easy ways out that some people take? Well, you can either deny or just say you're not committed to one or more of the following. And if you do, then you can say that it's not a sound argument. So you can deny that God is wholly good. You can deny that God is omniscient. In the words, that God's all-knowing. You can deny that God is omnipotent. Deny that he's all-powerful. Or you can deny that evil exists. Now, some people think that especially the first 3 of these are an easy way out, but look, they're really not an easy way out. On the face of it, it's a bit strange to believe in a monotheistic God which is only somewhat good and somewhat bad. Why would he be like that? And why would a God be limited in knowledge or power? Isn't he supposed to be the unique creator of everything that holds all things together? So these things are a poor fit with theism. That's one point, that philosophically they're a poor fit with monotheism. But here's another point. This is no way to defend religious belief, like Christian belief or Jewish belief, for instance, because religions affirm all these. So if you think this is defending your Christian belief, well, Christianity affirms that God is all three of those things, and so does Judaism, and so does Islam. So, look, Mackie would say if you take one of those easy ways out, you're just agreeing with me that belief in a perfect being really is inconsistent with any evil at all. And in other words, you just think my argument's sound. You think I've won my case. So this isn't saving religious belief, this is just surrendering to the other side. As to the fourth way, denying that evil exists, no, evil's real. I mean, look, this is a real picture of a soldier about to shoot a woman and child, and surely this was an evil action. And it's absurd to say that nothing's evil, that evil never occurs or is an illusion. If someone says that evil's not real, you should kick them in the shins until they say, "Stop, that's wrong, that's mean." You say, "Aha, so you do think evil is real." So how can a person respond? Is there any better response?